You're listening to the Unmitigated podcast, the podcast that brings to light the hidden risks business owners and entrepreneurs take every day that may not be covered by their traditional insurance. Here's your host, Van Carlson.
Hello, everybody. Van Carlson here at the Unmitigated podcast. Thanks for joining us today. We got a special guest today joining us. Came out to visit us, and we thought it'd be a great time to do a podcast with him. His name's Kevin Cantrell. Kevin, welcome.
Van, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And in fact, Kevin's becoming a strategic partner of ours, and I would say also too, just as you guys know, we're definitely making a focus on our farm and ranch guys here in the United States, and we've gotten some traction last year, and really with Kevin's help, we hope to have a lot more traction. So, Kevin, if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, and two, how we came to know each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
In about 5 minutes.
In about 5 minutes. Well, let's see what we can do. Again, Kevin Cantrell's my name. I've been a crop insurance agent for longer than I care to remember now, over 20 years.
I know that feeling.
Born and raised in West Central Illinois, heart of corn country. Born on my granddaddy's farm, just to give you a little background on me. Never really had ownership in a farm, but I've been a farm hand all my life until I got out of high school, and then I thought I didn't want to work that hard. And then had one career in technology for 20 years, and then in 2005 I decided I decided I was going to get in agriculture again, and got my crop insurance license. Sold some real estate. Giving you a real quick Van background. I don't even know if I've told you this story, about where I really came from. But been pretty much full-time in crop insurance for over 20 years. A lot of different roles. Been my own agent, independent agent. That's where I am today.
Yep.
Worked with insurance companies as salesman, trainer, recruiting agents, touched everything in crop insurance. But I love to be on the farm. So I keep coming back to sales. I'm building an agency now. And a little bit about how I got to be here with you today on this set. Early in 24, as I was looking at how am I going to grow my crop insurance agency, one of the things I wanted to do was add some more value.
Yeah.
And I've had discussions with a lot of people over the years about where they self-insure on the farm. When it comes to crop insurance, how much to self-insure and how much to take out the federal policy. That's always a conversation. And so I was looking at ways to help them in that conversation, self-insurance.
Yeah.
Not knowing, I will admit that prior to February of 24, I didn't know what a captive was.
Yeah.
And so I started doing some research, found the space, started looking for administrators, interviewed some administrators, talked to several, called SRA, started developing a relationship there. It didn't take me long that this is where I wanted to hang my hat, to be honest.
That's awesome.
And so starting to, I've got a company, I've got some partners. We've all been in the space for, I don't know, like 80 years, I think, is our total. And we're really excited about bringing captive opportunities to all ports of agriculture, not just production agriculture in grains and livestock per se, which is where I've lived for 25 years. But there's so much more, and I'm seeing the opportunity and spending 2 days here with you and your staff. Me and my partners, we're going back home with a new excitement about what the opportunity here is to help agriculture, not just from profiting and growing my business, which is what my goal was.
Absolutely.
But this is really needed.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I gravitated to you guys. Honestly, in my professional career of selling traditional insurance, I just dabbled in crop insurance. I knew enough. I couldn't even say I knew enough to be dangerous at that point.
Yeah.
Since being around with you guys the last several months, crop insurance is and it's an intriguing insurance coverage in a lot of ways. I can appreciate the detailed work that goes into crop insurance, understanding it and bringing real benefit to your farmers. and for that matter, ranchers and dairymen and everybody else, because pretty much everybody's in crop insurance if you're in those three industries. But it's detailed work.
It is.
More than I realized. And so, we at SRA really we're looking for experts, right? I mean, I know enough. I pride myself on knowing what I don't know, right?
That's half the battle.
Yeah, and I don't try to pretend to be somebody I'm not. And I think with your help, I think we can make a big impact in crop insurance. So one of the reasons why I wanted Kevin to do this podcast with us on the Unmitigated is, just talking about the value. And if you have strategic partner, or if you're a strategic partner of ours, or if you're a client of ours, or if you're just listening to this for the first time, know that not only can we do a lot of things through traditional enterprise risk management, but when it comes to really getting into the meat and potatoes of crop insurance today, we rely on guys like Kevin, and Kevin pretty much is going to be our expert internally, honestly, you guys. So we're going to lean heavy on Kevin and his partners to get us into the farm and ag business and doing the right thing for the farmers. Awesome. And realistically too, it's just one of those things I've in honor of Kevin. That's why I'm wearing my cowboy hat today too. By the way, I should mention. I failed to mention to the viewing audience. I mentioned Illinois and growing up there and spending the vast majority of my life there. But 8 years ago, I moved south to Tennessee, living in Middle Tennessee, where the cowboy hat is a little more traditional wear. Traveling, and I didn't want to wear mine, but so I got the boss to. Yeah, well, I tell you what, man, I'm. That's kind of where I want to spend my twilight years is being back on the farm and ranch too. There's no more honorable work than being a farmer, no doubt. And I think that calls to a lot of people. There's nothing more American. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And too, man, they gotta. The people they got to compete with, big ag, they all got these tools. Yeah. And, to bring them to the farmers, to the family-run businesses, is something we at SRA has been trying for. It's been one of our missions, and we want to make it a normal business practice and all those things. So, and what's ironic is the code back in 1986 was one of the reasons why it started was crop insurance. So to bring it all back around to that and be able to, it's very rewarding to say the least, and I do think we're going to make an impact. And again, I'm getting to know more about crop insurance, but for the folks that are listening to this that maybe have influences on farmers and ranchers and that kind of stuff, how do you see, just explain a little bit about crop insurance. Here's what I'll tell you what I know, and then maybe that will get us down. Is really the farmers at first dollar loss, and then it's just wherever level they want to take that first loss to. Right. Yeah. And it's honestly something I kind of thought they were just, if you're going to buy 60% of the crop insurance, Fed subsidy program, that meant that, you're going to get 60% of your crop, if it hits there. But the reality is you got to go down 40% in the value of the crop before your kicks in. Yes. So there's a big gap there. There's a big co-insurance cause or a big deductible there, and that's where we're trying to fill in that bandwidth. Yeah. Is that fair? That's fair. That's fair assessment. We're not creating with a captive. We're not recreating the wheel. Yeah. What I'm going to present to you, we're protecting whatever the deductible is, and I call it the self-insurance portion of your multi-peril policy. Some parts of the country have different opportunities with crop insurance. They can go to a max of 75% of your production history. Everybody's got, I'm going to stay with corn and beans. We've got a production history that we insure. And we can insure a percentage of that to 75 in a lot of parts of the country. Other parts of the country, we can go to 85% of your production history. It probably depends on the loss history. Depends on the loss history, a lot of factors, but we're just limited there. But even in the best scenarios, we still have self-insurance that against our average production history, we're missing. We can't cover it. That's the profit. So on that, do you have data, like when does a farmer make money? Like traditionally, I manufacture a product. I know what that product costs to manufacture, and then I got to mark up after that. So So when you say 85%, is a farmer making money? I mean, can they afford to lose 15% of the crop that year and still make money?
A lot of times, no. To answer that question specifically for a broad range would be hard to do because you got to factor in a lot of things.
Yeah, well, that's the work involved.
The cost of production varies across the country on your size, and if you have owned ground, how much equity do you have in your production acres? Are you renting that ground? And then how do you procure all your inputs, and when do you do that? And then you don't know, you can about get a cost of production, but then here's the wild card. What are you going to get out of your crop?
Oh, right.
You're planting
that
varies throughout the year. You plant your crop in March and April, February if you're in Texas. You're not going to harvest it for 6 months. And a lot of folks are conservative to when they market their crop. The difference, what I've seen in my career, the difference between a successful producer and a challenged producer is marketing. When they sell their crop and how they sell their crop makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
And we can protect a little bit of that exposure with a captive.
Absolutely.
We can do that.
Yeah,
but
it makes perfect sense.
What several ways we can do that. But just speaking from production, agriculture, and crop insurance, what we have is a policy that's not a new invention. It's just we're using it in the captive space, and it's got some whistles on it that are unique. But we can custom form as much coverage up to 100%
right.
of that crop on top of the multi-peril. And then those that understand captive, you have other advantages that go way beyond traditional crop insurance.
Right.
To work with that captive. But here's flexibility. In any space that you're in any place in life, what's one of the things that I like to feel like I have to help me is flexibility and options.
Oh, yeah. Options is key.
Yeah.
I mean, I say it all the time. The more options you have, the better decisions you can make.
Better chance you have to win.
Yeah, exactly. And really be strategic about your decision making.
Right.
Just being at the whim of the deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I love it. In fact, I should mention too, Kevin and his team is really helping us design some really unique policies that piggyback on some of the federal crop programs that bring real value, that make the farmer sleep easier at night.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, one of the reasons I'm so happy to be going into this space is we need to be protecting these guys. And not that these guys are bootstrappers; they're do it themselves kind of guys. But honestly, we're not getting more farmers out there, right?
No.
It's been kind of interesting seeing. Do you know some of the numbers that have some of the contraction that's happened over the last?
I can't. I'm not prepared to give you numbers on the consolidation, but that's what we're seeing in the industry.
Yeah.
Is straight up consolidation. The big is swallowing up the little, and the little is having to, succumb to that. And that's one of the things with a captive, and I'm working with folks that are very intimately working in that succession area where we're helping mergers. Next generation, but it's even farther than that. Sometimes there's not an heir to the throne on the farm, but we've got such a network of producers that we're seeing a smaller consolidation where we'll have farms come together that independently cannot survive on their own. So we'll
create a little mini co-op ownership kind of thing.
Yes, and they'll come together and share resources, share talent, and survive. And in this world, it's about your networking ability and bringing talents that maybe the others don't have and resources to come together. And we're helping make those kinds of things happen.
No, that's I know.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's something we haven't done really hard. It's not been a focus at SRA, but through your help, that's going to change.
Yeah, good.
So if our strategic partners are listening to this and they have influences on there, Kevin's going to be our guy. Kevin and his team, we feel very comfortable with them going down that ag space.
Yeah, anything in ag, and it's not production even. There's other places in ag that need exposures protected that can't traditionally get the protection and might not even understand that exposure's there. It's just, we call it a cost of doing business.
Right.
But there is things we can do with the captive.
Oh, absolutely.
To mitigate
it's all
that.
about hedging. Hedging hedging where you can hedge.
Right.
The getting back to those options, right? But one of the things that we did a couple years ago is when we were approached by some cattle guys that were worried about their death loss. Today I think about the best death loss policy I've seen is about $1,000 per head.
Seems to be a common number.
Yeah, and of course we know right now. I mean, a dairy cow's running over $2,000.
Right.
So there's some gaps there as it's going on in the farm and ranch. What else do you see? I think we've talked about some irrigation, equipment.
We're working on it, looking at irrigation, what we can do. Irrigation insurance isn't necessarily expensive in most parts of the country, but you and I both know traditional insurance is stressed right now.
Oh yeah, and getting worse.
And getting worse by the day if you watch the news.
Yeah.
And I've got folks that's got irrigation, they're having to change and look for a new company about every second or third year. Their loss ratios are low, and they're not.
So the insurers are contracting.
They are.
Okay.
They are, and there's some captive opportunities coming, that we can put in place to kind of help folks mitigate some of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Volatility is.
Yeah, and if they're going to have to take on a bigger first dollar loss, no different than they've done in crop insurance.
Exactly.
That is unfunded liability, and you want to, how do you want to fund it?
Right.
Pre-tax or after tax?
Right.
That's the conversation.
And that's mostly iron. We're worried about the irrigator going over in the wind. That's the biggest peril there.
Sure.
And then we can transition to other physical assets on the farm.
We've done it for hell, right? We're farming ranch.
Yeah.
Some of the dairy guys that got such big dairy barns are like, we're not going to pay for this hell coverage anymore. We're not going to get anything. So why are we paying for it?
Exactly.
I'd rather self-insure that and control it myself. Yeah. The other thing I would say on that is that we've talked to other folks about is some political risk going on out there in the world.
We've got an environment now where, I won't get political, but politics is changing.
Yeah.
We're having some rollover. We got a new administration coming, and not to get on my stump, but things are going to be different than they have been.
Yeah, and hopefully in the right direction.
Well, sometimes stress has to happen to get better.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And Mr. Trump has got a philosophy. We'll see how he does, but the last time he was in office, I'm not going to complain about him, but he put some tariffs on that affected our soybean market.
Right.
And he kind of tried to make it right in the end, but it put some stress on us. So the tariffs may be coming back again, and we don't need any more pressure on our soybean or corn markets than what we've had lately, and it might be coming for a short time. In the end, we'll be okay, but in the meanwhile, there's things we can do.
Yeah, you got to maximize.
We got to.
Again, I've said for a long time, if you're doing well, just taking a little bit off, park it off to the side. Not only is it good risk management, it's just good business.
Absolutely.
And let's be honest, the farmers have, they would lead the Tea Party, right?
They would. They would.
And I get it, and I say it all the time in different aspects that, we as Americans, we don't want our money wasted.
Exactly.
And we want to, and the profit we make is not easy.
Yeah.
And when we do we got to maximize it everywhere we can. And I think an 831B plan obviously helps with that, and gives the control back to the farmer, the ranchers, and everybody else. And it also, hopefully, one of the things that we like to say here at SRA is we embolden business owners through innovation of risk management. And I think farmers are the same way. They're business people too. That's one thing that's been interesting to see, actually. I've got farmers. They're my favorite clients in a lot of ways, but they're challenged. Especially I would say the baby boom generation. But we're seeing this transitioning down to the next level, where they're a little bit more technology savvy. And but the older generation, they don't like the emails. We have this conversation about emails, and they still want eye to eye, hand to hand, shake the hand, and live by your word. Love doing business that way. The next generation coming up, I mean, they're competing with corporate farms, right? I mean, they're becoming a corporate farm.
They are becoming.
Like you're kind of like, they're merging together and they're figuring out this partnership thing, and I've seen some of that.
Yeah.
I find that really, that's a good thing to have, right? It's a good thing to hear. It's an evolution of what's going on. and it puts them in a competitive position. Because, like you said, no different than entrepreneurs or anybody else in the world of business, we're not making more risk takers. And I think the biggest risk taker in our economy by far is the farmer and rancher.
Biggest gambler there is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so the fact that we can bring some different strategies, maybe for the first time they're hearing about it, again, is a really rewarding thing. And so, again, I can't emphasize enough to that the fact that we're doing this and we're focused on it, and we're going to have new risk pools coming out specifically for these types of farm and ranch risk is exciting.
Yeah, I think it starts with discussion. It starts with, from a advisor, this is how I'm treating it, as adding this to my list of risk mitigation options on the farm. I just start asking questions.
Yep.
And the discussion that you can have, so many people don't know what they don't know.
100%.
And just simple questions about captives, simple questions about self-insurance, and helping the grower or the producer, or even folks that's in the vendor. I'm open to and want to start having some conversations with people that support production agriculture.
Oh yeah.
Your tractor, your implement dealers, your chemical fertilizer folks, all of those industries, they need to become more efficient, because when they're hurting, when those people set prices, and when they're struggling, what do? And no offense to anyone, but they just turn up the value knob and pass it on to the producer.
Right.
If they can become more efficient and they can find other ways to save money and protect, then that might not get passed on to the grower.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I
mean, like everything else, they got to pass the cost on.
Exactly, they do.
And sometimes, on the other side of that, the grower's already locked in on his price.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah, and that's a lot of risk.
There's stress everywhere.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
I'm familiar with the ag industry. My team is really focused and excited about the passion that you have and SRA has. And I love your mascot and what they do.
Buffalo.
You're running into the storm.
That's right.
And I feel like we're in a storm, and running away from it doesn't accomplish anything.
No, it prolongs the inevitable.
It does.
Where you don't have control of the outcome.
Yeah.
Anytime you can change the outcome.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
There's so much.
There is, and the other thing I would say to you is, looking at the horizon and the idea that, and I say this, and it's one of our other emboldened business owners, emboldened the farm and ranch. If they have good underwriting years and they don't have the losses, crop insurance doesn't get hit, they don't have any. It just gives them the ability, and one of the best things I've ever been told by our clients, honestly, is, Van, I just sleep better at night knowing I've done your program. And man, if I can ever hear a farmer or dairyman, and how rewarding is that as a professional when it comes to what we do, right?
I've got similar stories, but there's more to this than
100%.
100%. And it's just exciting. I appreciate you and opening up your doors and your company and your staff to help us, and in turn, I think we're going to do some great things together. I'm interested in learning and meeting a lot of folks that you do business with. That's another thing. I'm a networker. I love to develop relationships, because what happens with me, my goal is to learn something.
Yeah.
Every
the
conversation.
Cool thing is, and it's one of the fortunate things here at SRA, just figure out how people make a living, how business owners, and what you did and how you did it, and 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 we'll find those guys in ag. I mean, there's innovators and there's entrepreneurs in ag too, and risk taking, they've just gotten conditioned to the risk. We look at it and go, man, you guys,
like I say, they got thick skin and they're gamblers.
Yeah.
But some of it is not necessarily just the cost of doing business. There's options. There's things you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do have options.
Yeah.
Just because it's been this way for a good long while doesn't mean And how long has the captive been in existence?
Oh, I
40
know.
years.
And
40 years.
Several years ago, and it's going back 20 years ago, I think the farm and ranch community was presented this concept, but it was really presented because it was state tax planning.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's traditionally farm and ranch, asset heavy, cash poor kind of mentality. And, people doing premium finance life cases, and they were taking the assets and then they were utilizing it through an 831B. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys got wrapped up in it for not necessarily risk management. There was a small aspect of it, but the motivation was the estate tax planning.
Yeah.
And I think I would say, we're going to run into those folks.
And that's one of the things I'm learning in this industry, and I'm learning a lot of it from you personally. There's still that sentiment is still there a lot. And what I would want to say to anybody watching, not that this isn't a sales platform for me, but it's just we are taking this from a risk mitigation perspective with some tax and captive benefits with the cherry on top.
Yeah.
And the accumulation of wealth and developing reserves as what I call the caramel sauce on it. But the meat of it is risk mitigation and insurance principles, which is the core of the captive code.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's why we're so excited. Me and my team are insurance folks.
Exactly.
We're not tax professionals.
You and I both get geeked out on that, so on the risk stuff, right? And no, I agree 100%. And I would say to you that so if you know clients or been involved in those things, and the motivation's been X, I think due to the environment we're in now.
Yes.
Traditional insurance companies doing what they're doing, contracting of markets. I say it all the time. You're paying more and getting less.
Yep.
In coverage. You're self-insuring more and more all the time. So honestly, you owe it to yourself. The CPA communities that focus on farm and ranch, they need to start to learn about these codes. They need to understand this. It's going to become a normal business practice. We're kind of excited about the future of the administration. We don't know. Yeah. We don't know where we have some really good confidence that we're going to make some good changes on the law. Not even changes, but really to take away some of the ammo the IRS has been utilizing this under the code for intimidation, right? I mean,
really?
Farmers by nature are super conservative people. And we don't want to put them in harm's way when it comes to the IRS. So all of those things we've been doing for a long time now, I think it feels like the planets are lining. You know what I mean?
Seems that way.
It really does, and we can bring real value to and real solutions, and do the right thing for the farmer and the rancher and the dairyman.
And it's really not that difficult. It's a matter of education and looking for situations.
And getting rid of some of the boogeyman stuff.
That's part of the education.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, you owe it to yourself to look into tools like this, right? Because you've taken all the risk to do what you do. Now, how do you mitigate that on the backside?
Right.
And so, no, Kevin, any parting words, or let me ask you this. I mean, you're always welcome to go through SRA and reach out to us to get Kevin Cantrell's. I love your last name, by the way. Yes. Get information. We'll pass it on or give you Kevin's. But what would be a good way to get a hold of you?
Well, quite honestly, I've got an email address that's kind of unique. Crop Insurance Info, CROPINSINFO @yahoo.com. You can reach out to there. And I'm not afraid here on Unmitigated to give you my cell phone number.
Well, throw it out there.
It's area code 217-257-5961. Or you can always call anybody at SRA and they can put you in touch with me.
Yeah.
We can have a conversation and, just develop relationships. And that's where I geek out on, is insurance and getting to know people. Anywhere in this United States that touches agriculture, I've almost been there. There's some places on the coast that I haven't did any business, but I'm looking forward to doing that.
You want to go to California?
I don't mind it. I don't want to live there. But I've got some almond guys and some great.
You mean almonds?
Almonds. And I know. I've been there. I know. I'm not going to tell you why, but I've been there, and I know it's almonds. And that and the grapes, but
We did some stuff in Napa Valley.
Yeah.
With the smoke stuff, we had some interesting coverages come up because they were worried about the smoke getting into the flavor of the wine.
Yeah, there's a ton of space. There's a ton of
risk is not a problem.
Risk is not a problem. Finding risk out there is not a problem. No,
it's
but
not.
yeah, just anyone could reach out to me, and I just enjoy having a short conversation or a big conversation. Crop insurance, captive, any of that. Looking to grow.
So listen, we've taken enough of your guys' time. Here's what I'd say to you. Definitely, if this is appealing to you guys, it's a space that maybe you don't know anything about, or you've got some influence on some clients that you want to try to bring additional value to them, or just be able to educate on this tool. Obviously you guys can tell that Kevin's just as passionate about what he does as what we are at SRA. I'd really encourage you guys to reach out to us. Reach out to Kevin directly. Yeah. I think, this is a space we need to be in. And we're just beginning of 25, and we're excited about the future with this space. Appreciate your guys' time. Thanks for joining us on Unmitigated. Have a great day.
Thank you.